terms and conditions that I imagine might approach a POW camp. Why can't they just let us alone?
Letting us alone doesn't seem to be in their natures. Marion leaned back and locked eyes with him, a sarcastic expression crossing her face.
We're a tiny island 2 miles across, with a population somewhat over 400 people, and just a few miles from the French coast. What possible threat could we pose to them, particularly with our roads and beaches strung all over with barbed wire, minefields, and armed sentries everywhere?
She reached up and brushed back a scraggly hair from Stephen's balding head.
You're the handsomest man I ever knew, but I've seen you look better. And at our advanced age, I doubt either of us would be a match against our occupiers in a tussle.
Stephen chuckled and leaned down to kiss her cheek. And yet you've held them back with your wit and charm. He gazed into his wife's eyes. I'm proud of you, Dame Marion. And so are our islanders. They stayed when they could have been evacuated because you asked them to, in order to preserve our culture. You have the love and loyalty of every one of them for the way you've met the enemy and protected our rights, and you've done it with dignity and grace.
Do you think this mass deportation is in retaliation for the raid back in October last year?
Stephen smiled wanly. That's the scuttle, but the Nazis need no excuse. They'll drum up a reason that seems plausible to appease world opinion.
But the island was raided,
Marion protested.
We didn't raid anybody.
None of that matters to Adolf Hitler. Stephen shook his head. 3 of their soldiers were killed. The message to us and to those who care about us on the mainland is clear. Someone will pay for future raids. 4 months earlier, 12 men from No. 62 Commando and No. 12 Commando landed on Sark to reconnoiter and take German prisoners. They climbed the cliff at a rock protrusion called Hog's Back, between Dixcart Bay and Darrable Bay, and then went undetected to Mrs. Frances Noel Petard's house.
She must have been terrified when they first arrived,
Marion had said on hearing the story.
And so relieved and full of hope on realizing they were British.
Mrs. Petard advised the commandos that 20 German soldiers stayed in an annex to the Dixcart Hotel, but she declined an offer to be escorted to England. However, she provided them with documents and a newspaper from neighboring Guernsey. The commandos hurried to the annex, a long, low structure built to house German soldiers. Immediately, Lars Lassen, a Danish commando, dispatched a lone sentry with his knife. And very quickly the Brits overwhelmed the Germans, tying their hands behind them without allowing them to dress, and to make running more difficult, they opened the Germans' trousers such that they had to be held up from behind to prevent them from falling and exposing the captives' privates. However, one man who had slept naked and was not allowed to dress managed to escape and ran across a field, yelling fiercely. His comrades joined him in screaming and shouting. In the annex, shoving and jostling started and became violent. The commandos decided to beat a hasty retreat to their evacuation point, but in the ensuing melee 2 more Germans were killed. Nevertheless, the commandos managed to escape back to Britain with the newspaper from Guernsey that Mrs. Petard had provided, and 1 prisoner, Obergefreiter Hermann Weinreich.
These deportations and a copy of the Guernsey Evening Press seem a heavy price to pay for the deaths of those Germans and the capture of 1 prisoner, I should say,
Marion grumbled.
And now there's a big fuss about tying captives' hands behind their backs. Our chaps supposedly did it here during that raid, and now the Brits and Canadians are shouting as loudly about the practice as the Germans, who ordered it done after that disastrous raid at Dieppe. I suppose our people fear that if we do it, it could become commonplace in the treatment of our own captured soldiers.
Yes, well, don't talk about that too loudly or often in my absence, Stephen cajoled. Our captors are in no mood to be benevolent, and I've heard no such talk coming from them officially, so they will conclude that you could only have learned about it from the BBC. The penalty for